From recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex, I'm your host, Steve Urban, and here is your Riderflex podcast episode of the day. All right, Con, are you ready to roll?
I am indeed. Let's do this.
Very nice to meet you, my friend. Thank you for being on the Riderflex podcast.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we get into the business, why don't you tell the listeners about yourself? Just give us the background. And yeah, I saw you went to school over in London or Canterbury, I guess. Fascinating kind of story. You look you up on LinkedIn and you're like, oh, that's interesting. How did he wind his way to Boulder? And so, but anyway, why don't you start with some early family stuff, maybe? Where you grew up, parents, siblings, anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So my route to entrepreneurship was a little bit different than, I guess, most people. I come from a very science background, but I actually was born in Hong Kong during the British rule. And our family actually emigrated to Australia soon after I was born. Hong Kong was being transferred back to China, and we knew that, so we kind of left that situation. I love the city, love the culture there, but we didn't know what was going to happen. So we ended up in Melbourne, Australia for about 6-7 years. Grew up there. Loved the Australian culture. It's one of the greatest, great countries of the world. But then my dad, who actually was a VP of product for my uncle's company at the time, making disposable nappies or diapers, back in the 80s when disposability, was a new fad, a new thing, right? Okay. And so my uncle and my dad transferred to England to expand the business, and obviously the family went.
How old were you then?
I was about 13 at the time. Yeah, so okay. I was 7 when I left Hong Kong, and then about 13, 14 when I went to England to live.
Were you pissed, or were you like, yeah, this would be cool?
I think I was a bit too young to understand the implications, right? But I certainly have enjoyed I've maintained my friends in Australia and Hong Kong, and actually in England. So it's been great to have like a strong friends network, families and friends network across the globe. But yeah, no. And then in England, I went to school, and I fell in love with astronomy and astrophysics. That was my first big love in my career. And I actually eventually got into getting my PhD at Oxford University in England.
Congratulations, by the way, doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Doctorate from Oxford is not a small thing. That's a pretty major accomplishment. Congratulations. Yeah, cool.
I appreciate it. And it's actually something.
When you were getting your doctorate, go ahead. I thought you were probably about to roll into it, but did you know what you wanted to do exactly right in there, or did you? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, when I was growing up as a kid, growing up in Australia, looking up in the sky, and I just fell in love with astronomy. I thought I could be an astronaut, a fighter pilot, and I still have those passions now. But going through the whole PhD program and fundamental research and science, actually, there's a lot of parallels between that and entrepreneurship, actually. Which we can dive into later. But yeah, no, I've always, and after my PhD, I thought, I have to come to America. Like, clearly, if I'm in space and astrophysics and astronomy, I have to be in America to work for NASA, right? And so
I see.
So I did. And that's how I ended up in Boulder, Colorado. Boulder is a very aerospace and space science heavy city with a deep culture there. So ended up staying after my 2-year position, and now it's been 11 years. Yeah.
So that's why you came to Boulder, and then you worked for Southwest Research Institute. Is that for like almost 12 years, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I was a pure researcher. We had NASA grants, non-profit government funding, basically, to explore the universe. We build parts for spaceships. We run space missions, operations, use telescopes to look at the planets. So yeah, all that stuff. And yes,
12 years. That was a good run. Were you thinking right in there, like you still wanted to be a pilot / astronaut? Were you trying to open the right doors to eventually go up into space during that time?
Yeah, I throughout that whole period, and I will say even now, that love of space and doing things, hands-on. So I'm a private pilot. I've got my FAA pilot's license, but it's one of those things where it's just you can't help but fall in love with the idea of going to space, seeing from the Earth from space, and who knows? Like I'll just buy a ticket on Virgin Galactic one day, maybe. Yeah,
Gotcha. Before we get into the entrepreneurial part, can I just ask you,
please.
are there life on other planets? Con, what do you think? What do you think?
Well, I mean, certainly that's one of the key goals at NASA right now, like to try and understand if there's life in our solar system. That's why we send, missions to Mars and other places like moons of Jupiter and Saturn. But obviously we haven't discovered it yet. But I think if you talk about just generically in the whole universe, I think you gotta say there's tens of millions of planets, hundreds of millions of planets, billions of planets, really. And the odds are that you whether we'll find it or not, I don't know. But I think it's out there. So sure.
I would agree with that. By the way, I would think the odds are that I mean, you just go all the way back to the Columbus, Christopher Columbus, comparison when they're staring out the ocean, thinking, "Well, I wonder what else is out there." I mean, it's the same. It's the same. We just haven't gotten there yet. I think not to go down a rabbit hole, but I think isn't the key inventing a faster way to travel? I mean, as soon as that happens, it's a game changer, right? As soon as somebody comes up with quote warp speed.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, it takes a whole, year at light speed, at the speed of light, which is, the fastest that we think anything can go, to get to the nearest, solar system, right? And so we're at, a few percent of that right now with conventional. So it would take you, decades and decades and decades. So, it will be a game changer. I don't know when we'll get there. We're so engrossed with our own problems on Earth, rightfully so, that I think it'll take a fundamental shift in humanity's vision. Sorry, excuse me. I should turn my phone off next time.
That's okay.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
not our lifetime.
Speaking of turning your phone off, I got to do the same thing. Speaking of concentrating on Earth and the problems we have here, where my mind goes on that is, I'm like, okay, well, it is good. We do need to concentrate on whatever we're doing to screw the planet up. But at the end of the day, population will sooner or later inevitably be an issue. Like it will be an issue. Like if we all live long enough, not me and you'll be dead, but our grandkids, great grandkids, like sooner or later, it's going to be a problem. If we don't figure out a way to move human beings to other places, it's going to be a problem eventually. I mean, the math just says it will be a problem, right? Unless there's something that wipes out a bunch of people, it's going to be a problem.
Well, I mean, the Earth's resources are limited ultimately, right? Energy maybe because we get that from the sun, but you talk about food and agriculture and water. It's just at some point we're gonna overload the Earth. So
at some point we're gonna overload. I mean, I'm 54, so I'll be dead before that happens. But somebody's gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, a good segue, which is I think as people, as human species, I think we're really great at inventing our way out of problems, right? We see a problem, and usually humans are great at figuring out solving that problem. And if it gets bad enough, I think there's going to be more impetus, more money, and traction to do that. And so yes, it does look a bit pretty dull sometimes.
It does.
I think from what we've seen from history, I think we should be positive about our future. So
you know what my comparison is, my little tiny little personal comparison is, I live in Colorado, and so I go to the mountains a lot. I have a Jeep. I go up in the mountains, try to go camping. Like I try to get away from people, try to find get somewhere. My comparison is, I find it harder and harder and harder to not see people, and I kind of use that as like a comparison. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly kind of what's happening on the globe, in a much larger scale. It's like there's people everywhere now. Anyway, So okay, so you're working there. You're loving you're a pilot. You're trying to get in space. Still trying to get in space, which would be totally awesome. Now, are you married, kids at the time, partners? What, single guy? What's the social life?
Yeah, I have a 8-year-old boy. And I had a wife, but she unfortunately passed away recently.
I'm so sorry. I did not know that.
No, that's
Um,
okay. I'm happy to talk about that. It's something that's part of me and part of my experience. And married, we've known each other for 20 years. Married for 13 of those. And unfortunately, last year she passed away from a long-term illness. So
a long-term ill.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Long-term as in she dealt with it for 2-3 years, or like how long did she suffer?
Oh yeah, it was about. I mean, the last 2 years was brutal. It was kind of a different version of cancer, basically. But yeah, about 5, 6, 7 odd years at that point. So,
How old was she?
yeah. She was 39, just turned 39. So yeah.
Isn't it? Boy, I tell you, man, that probably just did all kinds of things to you. Do you? First of all, hats off to the last 2 years of managing that and going through that. I mean, wow, that must have. I mean, you did that while you're trying to build a company.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow,
And
wow.
my co-founder David Sturgeon has been really supportive of my family, and obviously she was incredibly supportive of what we're trying to do. We actually even went to do Techstars. We actually applied to do Techstars in Boulder because obviously we're in town. We missed one of the programs in 2019 by a hair's length. And then we got invited to do the program in Philadelphia with the Comcast NBC program, and we took our families. Both Dave and I took our families over there for 3 months, and this was her last year, which obviously we didn't know about at the time. But even then, she was incredibly supportive of
Wow.
just the passion that we had, and obviously we loved what we did, and yeah, it was difficult.
Was it terminal? I mean, did you know like there was no getting out of it? Was it
It was weird. It wasn't like a terminal diagnosis initially,
okay.
but as the disease progressed and we saw the data, the progression of as it got more aggressive, then it was more looking more like it wasn't going to work out well. So,
Wow.
but it wasn't like, here you have 6 months, like a stage 4 cancer. It was a slow progression of that. Yeah.
Did it change the way you live your personal life now on a weekly, daily? Do you wake up and do you see the world a little differently?
I do, and I think it also impacts the way that I run the company, and I hope the way that my staff and my co-founder have kind of seen that. Hopefully that reflects. But one of the things is that starting a company is super hard, right? As everyone knows,
Yeah, I know.
it's one of the hardest things you can do. And coming from someone who's done a PhD, and I think so. One of the things that you can be really successful in your startup is actually have perspective, and to take the time to kind of obviously work hard, but not overly hard, right? The way I always say is work smart rather than too much or hard, right? You want to work smart, and the way you do that is to balance, have a good work-life balance. Otherwise, you're just going to burn out. Startups don't rarely exit. Unicorns are rare, right? As everyone knows, that's why it's called a unicorn. And so even with a unicorn, you're talking about 5 to 10 years at best, and most companies don't even get there. So it's a long road, and if you go too fast, too hard, you will burn out. And I think what I've what I've learned.
Let's walk into how you got there with your company.
Sure.
Tell us, what were you like, having beers with some friends and you're like, hey, let's start our own thing, or how'd you walk us into it? Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just give you like a quick overview of the company. The product's called Uncanny.gg, and we live on the intersect with video games and live streaming. We use computer vision and AI to watch gameplay, video games live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And with that data, we're actually able to control broadcasts, elevate the broadcasts. Like we kind of say, like we're turning 1960s football into Monday Night Football, right? There's a world of difference if you watch the two and compare the two.
I see.
But yeah, we didn't actually start there. So David Sturgeon, my co-founder, he and I was his next door neighbor actually when I first got here to Boulder. And we're both gamers. He was doing other things with his company, and I was doing my thing with NASA and Southwest Research Institute. and we love playing video games. And so we met, and every Friday night we'd have beers and pizza and just play video games all night.
Cool.
And so after years and years and years, he looked at me and said, and we play first-person shooters, and the genre might, it's basically Call of Duty, running around with shooting people, right, in a video game. And the conversation started where it's like he watched me beat him every single time, and how do you do that? Like, what is it? What's the trick? Is there some trick there? And we thought about it as, well, I wonder if there's some technology, some software that could actually watch me play and compare me to him, figure out some delta there, whether it's reaction time or the way I'm positioning myself or whatever it is, so that it can give us some insights into whether he can improve, how he can improve, right?
I see.
So it's like tennis players, like looking at your forehand, racket speed and where you put the ball, where you position. Anyway, so we looked at that and thought, actually, and we looked at the market and was like, hey, this is 5 years ago or so. Esports and streaming, it was a massive growing market, and now it's after the pandemic, it's massive. And we thought, and the second thing was there's no solution like that, and we thought, well, let's build it. Let's see if we can do it. And both David and I obviously have technical backgrounds and love building things, and so we started on that path, and eventually led to the formation of the company and our first iteration of the product, which was esports training, just like I said, comparing players basically, and trying to help people get better. So
now, and then how did you bootstrap it with your own cash? You and him were like, we'll just put in our own money. And did you have to hire a bunch of software engineers to help you, or you guys did that yourself?
We obviously put in some money up ourselves into, and then we found a computer vision software engineer who's still with us right now, and to build out an initial prototype just to see if we could get it working. And
were you like, hey, come do this, and we'll give you some equity because we can't really pay you right now?
Yeah, we gave him some equity. And we didn't give him a lot of salary. I mean, obviously, as startups are, cash is gold. So gave him a little equity, and then we brought him on full time. We just loved the guy, Jake Shermer, my lead computer vision data scientist. So then we just kept building and building until we were at a point back at the end of 2019 when we first released the product, and it works. I mean, a lot of people were interested in getting better at video games, but we couldn't actually convert them to full users, right? We didn't figure one component, which is human behavior. So the way that the technology worked was you had to upload a video, a large couple of gigabyte video into our servers. We'd analyze it, and then we would spit out the report for you to improve. But that's not how people work. I mean, it's just against all nature for video gamers. And so we sat back, and at the beginning of 2020, the pandemic hit, and we just sat down and thought, well, where's the money in esports? Where's the money in video games and streaming? And we took a deep dive, talking to everyone who would actually pick up the phone with us and talk to us about the industry. And it turned out the money was in 3 verticals. It was in sponsorship, content creation, and marketing. And so with our technology, we realized that actually we could provide a real benefit to streamers. We could actually watch them play the game, and whenever something amazing happened, we could trigger overlays, replays, lower thirds, transitions, AV effects. And
just like Monday Night Football would like replay an awesome thing, that a touchdown that just happened, boom, automatic replay. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at a stream right now, on Twitch or Facebook gaming, 99% of it is public access TV, right? It's a webcam like we're doing right now, and a video game behind it. And these influencers, these gamers, streamers, they expect to play the game well and also talk to chat. There's this stream of chat with their audience talking to them, and that's all. That's as much effort, energy that they can put in. They're also expected to run a full production team with overlays, and that doesn't work. That's why you don't see it, because there's one man crew. And so with automation, with AI, we can actually drive that whole process. Make everything incredibly beautiful, seamless, engaging, so that people stay on their channel. You can separate yourself. There are some 20 million streamers just within North America itself with an audience of about.
And if they stay on their channel, then the advertisers get more eyeballs, and then that's how they make money because they stay on their channel. I see.
And streamers as full-time streamers and influencers, they stream full-time, and so the way they get paid is through adverts and also subscriptions and donations. And those subscriptions and donations only come from viewerships, right? They watch you. I like watching your podcast, Steve. I'm gonna donate $20 just because I want to support your channel. And there's so much revenue going into streaming nowadays.
So if I'm a professional gamer, I stream all the time. I got some sponsors that are paying me for advertising. Now I can also use Uncanny, right, to make it even cooler, which gets even more eyeballs and gets even more revenue for me from marketers. I see.
Yep, that's it.
Gotcha.
You got it.
How do I pay for your service if I'm a professional gamer and I want your service to make my stuff look cooler? Is that a monthly deal? Is it per eyeball?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So right now we're in private beta. So we have about close to 7,000 users right now. It's all free until we go for release. And when that happens, there's going to be two ways that we're going to monetize. One is a standard SaaS model, which is, we have a freemium version with so many creatives, overlays, and hours that you can use. And then we have tier 1 and tier 2 on top of that. And that's for the streamer. That's great. Like I'm going to pay for service because I know it elevates and enhances my stream, and that's fine. That's a fairly standard business model, revenue generating model. But the really cool thing is that for every there's 20 million streamers, or roughly 20 million streamers in North America alone. But for every streamer, you have 10 to 20 viewers, right, on average. And so you really want to try and monetize them as well, because there's a lot more of them than our streamers. So what we can do, and this has been proven out in the gaming and streaming sector, where, like I said, I'm watching you stream or podcast, and I like what you do. I'm gonna donate $20 to your stream every month. Subscribe, $10, $20, whatever it is. But I can also donate Uncanny to you, right? So for let's say the premium package is $30. I only need 5 or 6 of them to actually donate $4 or $5. And then suddenly I have a whole new viewing experience. I can donate to the community as a whole. There's 50 people, and Steve doesn't have Uncanny. I'm just going to donate part of Uncanny to you. And after a while, it's kind of like almost crowdsourced in that way. And as a viewer, I get the pleasure of elevating my community. I elevate the streamer or the influencer, and everyone wins. So, and obviously.
Is this proprietary, like super secret, the software? Are you protected? Is there competition? Talk to me about all that.
Yeah. So there's really no one in our quite doing what we're doing. There are what we call feature competitors. So if you take all the features and separate them out, then there are companies doing each of those. But in terms of live streaming, AI, computer vision, that triggers overlays and broadcasting technology, there isn't quite anything quite like it. There's something called Elgato Stream Deck, which is, if you imagine just basically a keyboard, sells for between $100 and $200, and it's basically a keypad that you plug into your PC, and you program each button to do something. You take a button, you say, I'm going to transition overlay, and during a live stream, I'm going to have the cognizance to push a button at the right time, program properly to do what, and it's been hugely successful. We're hopefully going to replace that because it's all automated on the cloud. And so there's things like that, and overlays. People sell overlay packages, but it's pretty superficial right now.
So is it a little bit speed to market then? It sounds like if Google wanted to get a bunch of developers on it, they could probably do something like you're doing. But so is this like a speed to market? Then eventually somebody picks you up and you sell it, or are you just having fun building it right now? Or is there like a super secret whiteboard plan somewhere where you're, you know?
We have a lot of great plans as all startups do, right? A lot of blue sky stuff. It's and we hopefully will get to them at some point. Look, the thing is, obviously we're first to market and speed to market, right? And getting good traction there, and good branding, and doing everything right. Talking to our users, seeing what they want us to build next. And we have a thriving Discord. Discord is kind of like a Slack. I don't know if you've heard of Discord, but I think Microsoft at one point last month, I think they were thinking about buying Discord for like $10 billion with a B.
Really?
So yeah, huge community base. But anyway, so yeah, it's funny. Game developers are very much focused on developing the games. You have AAA games that sell, like Call of Duty, for instance, by Activision. That's the whole enterprise. When you talk about Twitch and Facebook gaming and YouTube gaming, the platforms that stream to the audience, basically, there's billions and billions of dollars there, and their only sole focus is revenue generation through sponsorship and attracting more viewers, right? And so from that perspective, and for us, we're a computer vision AI company, so there's bespoke technology on the back end that you need to build in order for this to work. And so the game companies aren't focused on that market, and also they don't normally have computer vision AI experts. I mean, they have AI experts for like generating facial features for video games, right? Computer graphics, CG, basically, but not in the way that we use computer vision like self-driving cars. And so yeah, on platform side, they're just not. That's not in their sandpit. So
it sounds like you're having fun building it, and sure, you'll sell it, I guess, someday. If somebody writes a big enough check, I mean, as a startup entrepreneur, I guess we're all kind of for sale all the time, aren't we? I guess if the check's big enough, but
ultimately. There is some exit, whether there's exit or IPO.
It's so funny when I asked you if there was a whiteboarded plan. I can tell by your reaction that you get that question a lot, and I do too for Riderflex. Anytime I'm meeting with an advisor or one of the equity holders, they're always like, "Okay, show me the updated 5-year blue sky financial model whiteboard." I'm like, look, man, look, we're just placing candidates and just working hard. I don't have an updated 5-year model to Monopoly fantasy model to show you today.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the thing about financial models too, right? Like, we're going through a fundraising process right now, and financial models is one of the key points, right?
You got to have it for that. Yep.
You got to have it. And the idea is not to have everything sealed up 100% correct. In fact, it's a recent VC told me that, financial models are roughly like 1 or 2% accurate, in the long term.
Right. Probably. I'll bet you.
Yeah, and it's not supposed to be accurate, right? The idea is to lay out how you're thinking about the whole business, right? And your key KPIs, your key decision points, right? Throughout the whole process. And so you're
raising cash. You're in a cash raise right now. Is this like, are you calling it seed? Are you calling it A? What are you calling it?
Yeah, we raised our pre-seed over the last 2 or 3 years. Now we're now seed round right now.
Okay.
So yeah, we've converted a number of angels. They've been strong backers, and now we're moving to the VC stage and running our process there.
So how do you like the the cash raise experience and asking rich people to write a check? How do you like it? Are you getting better at it? Do you like it? Do you prefer not to do it? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think it's always a necessary thing, right? Like ultimately, in a perfect world, this perfect scenario, you never have to fundraise, right? You're always a revenue generator, profitable. You just don't have to start any part of your company to get it going. Ultimately, that's really not how things work for most people. We've had some great advisors that have helped us on that to learn how that whole process works. And to be honest with you, we've been like I said, we've been doing this for 3 years and continue to fundraise, and we still learn new things, right? We still have new questions that VCs ask. It's like, I actually never thought about that question coming out. So it's all about process and sticking to the process and just ultimately believing it. And when I jump into VC's calls and angel calls, it feels monotonous and difficult sometimes, but at the same time, like, as soon as we get into the stride, it's incredibly like the passion with David and I overflows, right? And that point, it's relatively easy after that. So it's having faith that the whole process will work out for you. So.
Well, they are investing in you. I mean, really, at the end of the day, they're investing in you.
Totally.
You're at that raise cash, burn cash phase, right? So people are giving you cash, and you're not, you don't have any revenue, so there's no price. So you just burn it. I mean, just every day you wake up, you're burning cash.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
And that is a little bit of a stressful period, right, to live in, because you're like, okay, this is all cool right now. These conversations are great. We're raising some cash, but eventually, all these people that wrote checks, they're gonna want to see the return on this stuff, and the pressure will start sooner or later.
Yep. Yeah. And that I think that pressure helps, right? It depends on how you
It
want to deal with
does.
it, right? Like
It
you can
does.
take it and say, like, I'm responsible for my stakeholders, work hard, right? And do the best that you possibly can and make good decisions. So
I had another founder on the podcast recently. He said that exact same thing. He said, when you take money from people, if you thought you worked hard before, now you're running even faster because you got other people's money in the bank.
Yeah, that's definitely true. When you put your own money in, like we did, then you know the risk. You burn it, and it's up to you, right? But when you're burning someone else's cash, it's definitely a different situation. So,
do you see revenue? You kind of touched on it a minute ago, but when do you see revenue starting, or do you have it kind
yeah.
of? Is it next year? What are you thinking?
No, it'll be this year, and it'll be in the next couple of months.
Next couple of months. Okay.
Yeah, so the 18-month goal, to spend the seed money will be basically just revenue generation, right? And getting that squared away for Series A in 18 months time.
Okay.
We've actually had people say, "Can I pay you for your premium service?" And it's like,
Yes.
cool. We're getting a lot of signals from that. A lot of people do that. And we also have the whole SaaS model on our website, on our product, so that people can buy, but it's not linked to anything, right? Everything on the back end is linked, we just haven't turned it on. But we can see how many people click on the buy button. And so it's thousands and thousands, which is great. Like it's good validation that at least, I mean, it's not quite the same thing as actually putting in your credit card. But we'll never be ready until we actually turn that on. But there's great signs there. So
the day you turn that on and the first credit card charges hit your bank, that's gonna be, you guys gonna be having beers that night for sure.
And I'll put a $1 note right there. Not what they do.
That's cool. That's so great.
Yeah.
You're sounds like you're having a blast building it. Your co-founder, or your co-founder, your partner is the co-founder. Now, is he the CEO and you're the CTO, or how'd you guys divide that up?
Yeah, that's right. He's the CEO, I'm the CTO. We're equal partners, co-founders. But at the same time, he and I, I think at the very beginning, said, look, we're going to be equal co-founders, and we're going to be co-founders first before C-suites, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly powerful, and I think that's stood us really well over the 3 years. I have to understand everything from marketing to employment to, influencers to every financial model raising, all that stuff, and he has to understand the technology. Right. And all that stuff. And we share roles in that way. And that's been great.
Are you two still in control? I don't know how much you want to share. Are you two still in control of the cap table, or are you in control?
No, we gave away, we've been trained properly, I would say, and we still control the company. We only have raised our seed round, pre-seed, sorry. And so we totally control that. But at the same time,
nobody's outvoting you so far. That's good. Good man.
No. And to be honest with you, ultimately, we're not too fixated on that, right? We know at each stage we have to give away a certain amount, 15, 20, 25%, right? And so we know what that boundary is. And also at the same time, we need to focus on our consumers and our product and our roadmap, as opposed to worrying about who's going to be on our board. And to be at the same time, like, we love people. We're pretty selective about the people we work with, which also negates that, right? That we're good. I think we're a good judge of character in that sense, and so we shouldn't worry too much about who's going to be on our board, because I know that we'll find a good partner eventually.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right, awesome. So if people want to look this up, or they go to uncanny.gg, right? Is that correct?
Yes. Uncanny.gg. www.uncanny.gg. GG is a internet dot that is for gaming companies, and it derives from back in the day when you're playing video games but you didn't have live chat or live video. People would just, at the end of the game, type in GG as in good game.
That's
in that chat.
I didn't know that's where that came from. Interesting.
Yeah. And so now it's just a pseudonym for all gaming companies. It's GG. Or even if I just say at the end of the game GG, and we just leave.
And the parent company is Pivan Interactive?
That's right, Pivan Interactive. Yeah.
Okay, and that's an what is that, an LLC so far? Is that how you set it up?
Yeah, Delaware corporation.
Yeah. Okay, why that company name? Just curious, by the way.
Actually, so my co-founder, his grandfather was his last name was Pivan. And so we just named after him. And then he got to choose the company name, and I got to choose the product name, which became Uncanny. So
Have you ever thought if you didn't buy that particular house next door to him in Boulder, like none of this may have happened, right? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And you sent me some sample questions, and one of them was, what would you tell your 21-year-old self? And if I went back and told my 21-year-old self that I'd be starting a company, raising millions of dollars, building this thing that's used worldwide, it's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm gonna stick to astronomy. No, it's true. Like, it's amazing how that works, right? And I think that's just part of life, right? You just don't know. And obviously, with going back to personal life and everything, a lot of times you don't control that, right? I mean, I obviously didn't choose to lose my wife, and that has a big impact. And like you said, moving next door to my co-founder, never knew that I would create a company with him. So it's been fun.
Never know. You turn left, you turn right, you go through one door. I mean, it's just amazing how life works that way, right? I mean, just one little turn left or right, one little conversation. I mean, I often go back. I met my wife two-stepping on a dance floor outside of Austin, and I always say to myself, if I had not gone to the dance hall that particular night, that wouldn't have happened, right? I mean, it's just little turns left and right. It's interesting how life does that. Well, congratulations. What's your co-founder's name again? What's his name?
David Sturgeon.
David Sturgeon. Yep. Congratulations to you and David and everybody else that's involved in the team. Let me ask you a couple of wrap-up questions here. If based on what you've learned so far, I know we could do an hour podcast on this, but do you want to give 2 or 3 tips to aspiring entrepreneurs that have an idea but haven't started yet?
Yeah. Obviously have a real passion for it. Whatever you're trying to do, that's going to drive you way more than lack of experience or knowledge in any of that, right? Just love what you do, and you'll learn and delve deeper. Obviously, the other thing is don't plan too much. I mean, have a business plan, think about as much as you can initially, as much as you can do, but at some point you have to execute, right? You have to actually go there, and also just fail, right? Like, you go out there and you fail and it's just miserable, right? And all entrepreneurs should have failed already, right? Like, and will continue to fail until they fully succeed. And so, that's all part of the journey. I know a lot of people who've done both sides, right? Don't do enough research and just delve right in, or do so much research that never actually get off the ground because they're just so stuck in that mindset of I don't want to actually do it until I know totally what I'm doing. And you have to find that medium, and then just do it, and just have that drive and passion to do it, right? And again, fail, learn to fail gracefully.
You do just have to go, right? I mean, you can plan forever. You can sit around and create these fantasy Monopoly whiteboard plans for 6 months, but eventually you have to start walking forward. And when you do, you're going to fall down and trip and all the rest of it.
Yeah. I mean, we're always learning, right? We're always learning through failure or looking at data that we didn't think would show what we expected. Even now, even throughout the entire course of the company, and I imagine in the future as well. And so you have to learn from that and kind of adapt and figure out the solution. So,
let me ask you just a couple more questions here. Your core purpose in life now, if you had to define it, I'm guessing, obviously, you have a son that you mentioned, and so that's obviously a core purpose, but beyond taking care of him, if you stretched it beyond him, how would you define your core purpose now, based on everything that's happened to you with the company and with your wife? How would you define it?
I think if you take both the family and the business together, and your career in general, I think you gotta take everything together, right? Like, live a good life, and by that I mean enjoy everything that you do, give it everything that you've got, and that includes the business, but that also includes your personal life and your relationships and everything, right? And live each day like it's your last, right? And the company and that will all continue without me, right? But you only have one life to live. I heard a great quote the other day, which said that you have two lives to live. And one of them is when you realize you only have one life to live, and that's when you start your second life. And I found that
Wow.
incredibly powerful,
Wow.
especially when what I've been through. And I think, as entrepreneurs, you can lose sight of that, right? Like, why are you doing something, right? And you get so deep into the analytics, or why is my churn rate so high, or why does the investor not invest, and all this stuff. And entrepreneurship, like we said, is super hard. And so if you don't have that perspective, you don't enjoy your weekends, and your hobbies and all your passions, then I think you're missing out on a big part of life as well. So.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. When I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I just worked just all the time. I mean, that's just constantly.
So did I.
Now,
so did I. We still do.
My mid 40s and now in my mid 50s, I have learned how to balance a little bit more, because it's important, because it's a short window. I mean, as you already know, based on your personal experience with your wife, the window, it is a window that shuts eventually, and you just never know like how short it is. And as I get older, I'm just like, damn, I don't really have that much active time left. And so you're right, you got to be balanced, you got to live
and you need sleep. You need proper sleep as well. Figure out what your optimal sleep time is, and just you have to get it.
Isn't it weird how some entrepreneurs are like, I only get 4 hours of sleep at night, and I get up at 4 and I work till 9, and I'm like, okay.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you. Do you feel cool when you say that? Does that make you feel special? Yeah. I'm not sure it's good for your health, and probably not good for your long-term outlook on life either.
Yeah. No, totally right. People get different, like 7, 8 hours is the sweet spot, right? It's the Gaussian curve. And then people like Elon Musk, and they get like 4 hours or whatever, the tail end of that spectrum. Great for them, but most people can't live like that, right? And you'll just burn out. Work smart, not hard, right?
Let's end it with a space kind of a conversation, because that's kind of where we started.
Yeah,
totally. One of the things I do is if I get super stressed or something's going on with my life, I will, especially if I'm in the mountains camping or whatever, I will really just study the sky, the stars, and and just kind of remind myself, like, okay, let me just calm down, because I am just a little tiny little thing on this blue ball floating around in this gigantic black space that nobody even knows how big it is. It's like, and I'm like stressed about, I don't know, whatever, like something small, I just kind of remind myself, like, in the big scheme of things, like, it really doesn't matter, does it?
No.
Do you think that way sometimes?
Yeah, I do. Again, it's really hard sometimes, right? We all have our issues, and we all have our personal problems, and get so engrossed in it. And even with the company, like I really want to do well. I really need this funding, and I really need more customers, whatever it is. And but that's why it's so important to get that balance, right? You go camping, go into look at the night sky, and look through a telescope. Go camp, right? And I think and when you come down off the mountain, I feel like, and you probably can relate. It's then you're refreshed, and like,
totally.
I've not thought about it. Like, it's incredible, right? So
absolutely, yeah. And whatever your hobby is, whatever your thing is, and everybody's got their thing, right? They like to do whatever it is. Do it. Yeah, do it. Have fun with it, because you'll always feel refreshed when you come back and start getting after it again.
Absolutely.
Well, Con, congratulations on everything. Really wish you guys the best. I'm personally not a gamer, but I definitely get the whole concept of making the experience cooler in the moment. By the way, can you take that technology and like make the podcasts like I do, and like of course everybody's got a podcast now. Can you take that same technology and like make my podcast cooler too?
Yeah, so there's a couple of companies out there. We actually spoke to one of them that actually uses facial recognition. So we're talking right now, and I can see your face, but a lot of times I'm not looking at your face, or there's multiple people on the Zoom call, and I say something, and I tell a joke, for instance, to a room Zoom call of 12 people, and I can't see every face, right?
Right.
It's everywhere. And so what the technology for one of the companies, they actually look at your face and see if you smile or if you laugh, and it's a fraction of a second. It's like, oh, I smirk or I look away or whatever it is. They can read that, and that's a similar technology, right? It's using computer vision, obviously facial recognition in this case, doing some sentiment analysis and figuring out, did you laugh? Did you what? And then did I? How physical am I? You know, things like that. And so there are a couple of companies out there that's trying to do that for Zoom meetings and
Okay.
non-gaming applications. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wish you the best, my friend. I'm going to ask my son. My youngest boy's a gamer, so I'll definitely talk to him and tell him
Great.
about your company.
Put him
what's going
in
on.
touch. Love to speak
Yeah,
to
I
him.
definitely will. Thanks for being on the Riderflex podcast, my friend. Great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviewing. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get information and pricing on the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.